Religious beliefs are one of the most intriguing aspects of the human experience, and understanding their origins leads us to explore the ancient cultures that shaped the foundations of the traditions we know today. The Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Greek civilizations played a fundamental role in forming concepts that, in some way, echo in contemporary monotheistic religions, such as Christianity. Mesopotamia, often referred to as the cradle of, focused on Jesus' actions. The apostles, particularly Paul, played a crucial role in the expansion of Christianity. Paul, in particular, wrote letters addressing practical and theological issues faced by various communities. His epistles not only helped clarify the teachings of Jesus, but also proposed a new understanding of the relationship between faith and Jewish law. This vision was fundamental to the inclusion of Gentiles in Christianity. Civilization was home to diverse cultures that worshipped a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses. The Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians had their own specific deities and rich mythologies that explained the creation of the world and humanity's role within it. Mesopotamian myths, such as the famous Epic of Gilgamesh, not only addressed themes of mortality and the quest for immortality, but also established the relationship between gods, establishing a path that legitimized the Christian faith as a new religion distinct from Judaism. The New Testament, therefore, is not merely a collection of texts, but a testament to the diversity and richness of early Christian experiences. Its formation was a complex process involving intense theological debates, the selection of which writings would be considered sacred, and a constant struggle to define Christian identity in the face of, and humans, often reflecting a worldview in which the deities were capricious and their wills shaped human destiny. This type of narrative influenced how people would come to understand divinity and morality in later eras. In Egypt, religion was deeply intertwined with daily life, and the gods were seen as responsible for everything from the fertility of crops to the protection of the pharaoh. The belief in an afterlife, as evidenced by external persecutions and internal disputes. The canonization of the New Testament, which culminated in the mid-4th century, was an attempt to establish a common standard for Christian faith and practice, consolidating Jesus' message into an accessible and authoritative format. Paul's letters, for example, were pivotal to Christian theology. In his epistles, the apostle addressed themes such as grace, salvation, and communal life, proposing a mummification practices and elaborate tombs indicated a cyclical view of time and existence. Egyptian myths, such as the story of Osiris and Isis, emphasized the idea of resurrection and renewal, themes that would later echo in Christian doctrines regarding eternal life and the resurrection of Jesus. The notion of a final judgment, where the dead were evaluated based on their actions in life, also resonates with the beliefs that would develop Christian ethic that challenged the social norms of the time. His idea that all are equal before God, regardless of their origin or social status, was revolutionary and helped shape the Christian identity as an inclusive faith. Furthermore, Paul's emphasis on the resurrection of Christ and the hope of eternal life became a central pillar of Christian belief, establishing a new perspective on life and death. The influence of the New Testament within Christianity. Ancient Greece, in turn, offered a different perspective on the divine. Greek gods were personifications of aspects of nature and human experience, each with their own flaws and virtues. Greek mythology, with its epics and tragedies, explored the human condition profoundly, reflecting on fate, morality, and the pursuit of knowledge. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle began to question traditional beliefs, proposing a more writings extended beyond the religious sphere, impacting the philosophical, moral, and social thought of Western civilization. The Christian ethic, based on the teachings of Jesus and the letters of the apostles, shaped views on justice, compassion, and love for one's neighbor, which became foundational to various Western thought traditions. The concept of charity, for instance, which is central to Christianity, influenced social and political, rational and ethical understanding of divinity and morality. These ideas influenced the theological thought that would later emerge, allowing for a dialogue between reason and faith that would be essential in the development of Christianity. When we look at the intersection of these cultures, we see that the beliefs and practices that emerged were not isolated. They influenced each other and provided fertile ground for the formation of new practices throughout history, highlighting the importance of mutual care and communal responsibility. The formation and dissemination of the New Testament were also facilitated by external factors, such as the infrastructure of the Roman Empire, which enabled the circulation of ideas and texts. Roman roads and the use of Greek as a lingua franca allowed the Gospels and Paul's letters to be read and discussed in diverse regions, contributing to religious ideas. The concepts of divinity, morality, and the afterlife that developed in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece shaped the expectations and interpretations of the divine that would later be incorporated into monotheistic religions. However, what truly transformed the religious landscape was the transition from polytheism to monotheism, a phenomenon that did not occur abruptly but was gradually shaped by central figures in the rapid spread of Christianity. As Christian communities established themselves, they developed their own traditions and practices, many of which were influenced by local cultures. However, the diversity of interpretations and the plurality of experiences also posed significant challenges to the unity of early Christianity. Disputes over the nature of Christ, the relationship between faith and works, and the interpretation of Jewish law, history. This transition is one of the most fascinating in the history of human beliefs. Monotheism, which emphasizes the worship of a single God, began to take shape with the figure of Abraham, who is considered the patriarch of Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. The biblical narrative presents Abraham as someone who established a covenant with God, a relationship that transcended the polytheistic practices of his contemporaries. His generated conflicts and divisions. The need for a body of writings that could serve as a common reference became increasingly evident as new sects and interpretations emerged. The consolidation of the New Testament was, therefore, not only an act of preservation, but also an attempt to establish a consensus amid this pluralism. As Christianity institutionalized, particularly following Emperor Constantine's conversion in the 4th century, the new willingness to obey a singular transcendent God marked a turning point, not only for himself but for the generations that would follow. Moses, another central figure, deepened this change by receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, establishing an ethical and moral foundation that would become fundamental for Judaism and subsequently for Christianity. From that moment on, the religious identity of the Hebrew people was shaped not only.
Testament played an even more central role in defining Christian orthodoxy. Landmark in Christian history, where fundamental issues regarding the divinity of Christ and the relationship between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit were discussed. These theological debates were crucial for forming a solid foundation for the Christian faith, but also led to the exclusion of some strands that presented
by the worship of a singular God, but also by adherence to a set of ethical principles that would govern their lives. This evolution from polytheism to monotheism was not merely a change in religious practices, it was a reconfiguration of the very cultural and spiritual identity of a people. As these beliefs solidified, other cultural and religious influences continued to interact, creating a rich mosaic of ideas that would culminate in the divergent views. Over the centuries, the New Testament has continued to be a source of inspiration and reflection. During the Middle Ages, its passages were interpreted and reinterpreted, influencing art, literature, and philosophy. The works of theologians such as Augustine of Hippo and Thomas Aquinas, for instance, were profoundly shaped by the teachings found within the Gospels and the Apostolic Letters, molding Christian theology for formation of Christianity. The Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Greek influences did not disappear. Instead, they were reinterpreted and integrated into the new belief system that was emerging. The New Testament, which serves as a chronicle of the teachings of Jesus, is a testament to this rich tapestry of influences that shaped not only religious life, but also Western culture and philosophy. The New Testament, in turn, brings to light the figure of centuries. However, the New Testament also became a space for contestation, With the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin challenged the traditional interpretation of the Catholic Church, advocating a return to the Scriptures as the primary source of authority. This movement not only generated new Christian denominations, but also fostered an ongoing debate about the nature of faith. Jesus Christ, whose teachings and practices were profoundly influenced by this cultural heritage. The message of love, compassion, and forgiveness that he propagated resonated with the aspirations of many seeking a deeper meaning in their lives. Christianity emerged not only as a new religion, but as a continuation of the human quest for meanings that had already been explored in ancient traditions. The transition from a polytheistic to a salvation and biblical interpretation. The crisis of authority and the diversity of interpretations that emerged from the Reformation continue to resonate today. Modern Christianity is a mosaic of traditions, each with its own emphases and practices, yet all connecting in some way to the New Testament. The quest for an authentic and relevant understanding of the sacred texts remains a pressing issue for contemporary believers, leading to a monotheistic worldview represented a crucial milestone, and the roles of figures like Abraham and Moses were fundamental in this process, paving the way for the coming of Jesus and the formation of Christianity as we know it today. This relationship between ancient cultures, the development of monotheism and subsequent influences leads us to an even deeper reflection on how religious beliefs and practices have evolved over time. The next step, constant dialogue between tradition and modernity. Thus, the New Testament is not merely a historical document, it is a testament to humanity's search for meaning, spirituality, and community. The manner in which its teachings have been received, interpreted, and lived out over the centuries reveals the complexity of the Christian faith and its capacity to adapt to cultural and social changes. This flexibility is a testament to the resilience in our exploration, is to understand the formation of the New Testament and how the writings of the apostles and evangelists contributed to the dissemination and consolidation of the teachings of Jesus Christ. The interconnectedness of these narratives will reveal not only the evolution of the Christian faith, but also the continuity of the traditions that preceded it, unveiling a rich spiritual legacy that still resonates in our contemporary Christianity, which, even in the face of significant challenges, has found ways to reinvent and expand itself. As we look at the history of Christianity, it is impossible to overlook the influence of other religious and cultural traditions that have intertwined with the Christian faith. Religious syncretism, which arises in response to this meeting of cultures and beliefs, is a fascinating theme that warrants deeper exploration. The evolution of monotheism is a fascinating topic that reveals not only the transformation of religious beliefs throughout history, but also the profound connection between culture, identity, and spirituality. Before we delve into the nuances of this transition, it is essential to understand the religious landscape that prevailed prior to the rise of monotheism, characterized by polytheism. Ancient civilizations, such as those in Christianity, has incorporated elements from other traditions, adapting to the particularities of different contexts, has not only enriched the faith, but also raised questions about authenticity and Christian identity. The journey of Christianity, marked by dialogues and cultural exchanges, reveals the complexity and beauty of a faith that has, over the centuries, become a truly global phenomenon. Religious syncretism is a fascinating and complex. Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece worshipped a multitude of gods, each responsible for specific aspects of life and nature. This polytheistic worldview reflected the complexity of human experiences and the need to explain natural and social phenomena through deities that personified these forces. However, as societies evolved, so too did their beliefs. Monotheism, the belief in a single God, began to emerge as a viable alternative, at the core of reflecting a monotheistic worldview. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, it encountered various religious and philosophical traditions. Syncretism became a vital strategy for its acceptance and propagation. Elements of Neoplatonism, a philosophical current that emphasized the transcendence of the divine and the pursuit of spiritual truth, were incorporated into Christian doctrines. The idea that the physical reality is a shadow, this transformation was the figure of Abraham, considered the patriarch of the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. According to the biblical narrative, Abraham made a covenant with God, establishing an exclusive relationship that transcended contemporary religious practices. This alliance not only defined the identity of the Hebrew people, but also established a model of belief that would influence future generations. By a variety of cultural and religious influences, the beliefs of peoples inhabiting the Mediterranean region, as well as the traditions of older civilizations, such as the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, played significant roles in forming Christian concepts. The practice of worshipping a single God, for example, while central to Jewish identity, also found parallels in other cultures that worshipped supreme deities or had creation myths. Figure of Moses is equally crucial in the evolution of monotheism. He not only led the Hebrews out of Egypt, but also brought forth the tablets of the law, which contained the commandments and moral guidelines that would shape the life of the community. The revelation of ethical and legal principles during a time when societies were marked by polytheistic practices represented a significant step towards a more unified and exclusive understanding. Phenomenon that illustrates how different spiritual traditions can interact, blend, and influence one another over time. When we look at the history of Christianity, one of its most notable aspects is its ability to absorb and integrate elements from various beliefs and cultural practices, resulting in a faith that presents itself in diverse and adaptable ways across different contexts. From its origins in Judaism, Christianity has been shaped of God. This narrative not only solidified the identity of the Hebrew people, but also established a precedent for the idea of a God who not only created, but also demanded a standard of ethical behavior from humanity. The transition from polytheism to monotheism, however, did not occur in a linear fashion or without resistance. Many societies continued to venerate their traditional gods, and the new idea of a single God faced challenges both. Of the spiritual reality aligns well with the Christian view of a temporary world that is surpassed by eternity. Moreover, Christianity also found space to integrate practices from pagan cults. The use of symbols, rituals, and festivals familiar to local populations helped to ease the transition to the new faith. Christmas, for instance, is widely believed to have been influenced by pagan festivals celebrating the winter solstice. The choice of internal and external. For example, the worship of Baal and other Canaanite deities persisted among the Hebrews even after Moses' revelation. This struggle between old and new faiths is emblematic of the cultural and religious conflicts that permeate human history. Monotheism, therefore, did not establish itself merely as a belief, but as a movement that challenged the norms and traditions deeply rooted in society. The development of December 25th as the date for Jesus' birth was a strategy to replace and Christianize existing celebrations, favoring a smoother assimilation. The relationship with the cult of saints and the veneration of relics can also be seen as a form of syncretism. The practice of honoring sacred figures is not exclusive to Christianity. Many ancestral religions revered the spirits of ancestors or lesser gods. The incorporation of saints into Christian, monotheistic identity was also intrinsically linked to the experiences of exile and oppression faced by the Hebrew people. The narrative that a single God stood by the oppressed and that liberation would come through faith helped to cement the idea of a personal and engaged God. Thus, belief in a unique God not only provided solace in difficult times, but also offered a foundation for the construction of a collective identity. The stories of tradition allowed the faithful to continue honoring figures they considered sacred, while aligning with the new doctrine. This strategy not only facilitated the acceptance of Christianity, but also created space for local traditions to be respected and maintained within the new religious context. Religious syncretism did not only occur in early Christianity, Over the centuries, as Christian missionaries traveled the world, they continued to. Abraham and Moses, intertwined with the experiences of the Hebrew people, became a central pillar of faith, reflecting their struggle and resilience in the face of adversity. As monotheism became more established among the Hebrews, other cultures and religions were also undergoing significant changes. The idea of a single God began to resonate within other traditions, influencing their practices and beliefs. Zoroastrianism, for instance, which adapt and incorporate elements from local traditions into their practices. In Latin America, for instance, Catholic evangelization encountered many indigenous traditions that resonated with its own forms of worship. The result was a rich tapestry of syncretism, where the figures of Catholic saints often merged with indigenous deities, leading to celebrations that blended Christian rituals with traditional elements. This flexibility of emerged in Persia, presented concepts of duality and a supreme deity who fought against evil. This contact between cultures and their beliefs resulted in an exchange of ideas that shaped the perception of the divine. The evolution of monotheism culminated with the formation of Christianity in the 1st century of the Common Era. This new religious movement not only incorporated the teachings of Judaism, but also expanded to include a diversity of Christianity manifested in various ways, from art to music, and is reflected in the diversity of religious practices we see today. Churches around the world may adopt styles of worship that include dances, music, and practices unique to their cultures, while still maintaining the essence of the Christian message. The singing of hymns, for example, can vary greatly from region to region, reflecting local musical traditions while still expressing cultures and practices. The figure of Jesus of Nazareth, who challenged social and religious norms, became the center of this new understanding of God. He presented himself not only as the awaited Messiah, but also as an exemplar of love, compassion, and inclusivity, establishing a new paradigm for the relationship between humanity and the divine. In this context, the evolution of monotheism stands as a testament to humanity's capacity for. Christianity cannot be fully understood without recognizing the cultural heritage that has shaped them. The ritual of the Mass, with its structure and symbolism, reflects a combination of Jewish, pagan, and local traditions. Celebrations such as Easter and Christmas are not merely religious events, but also manifestations of how Christianity has adapted and intertwined with cultures over time. Therefore, as we analyze Christian beliefs and adaptation and transformation, beliefs are not fixed. They evolve in response to cultural, social, and historical changes. The narratives of Abraham and Moses are fundamental to understanding this transition, but it is equally important to recognize the broader contexts that influence the formation of these beliefs. Monotheism was not merely a break from the past, but also a continuation of humanity's quest for meaning and connection. As we, our common adoration for God. On the other hand, syncretism has also generated tensions and internal debates within Christian communities. What some may view as a necessary and positive adaptation, others may consider a dilution of the original faith. The struggle between maintaining the purity of doctrines and adapting to new cultural realities is a persistent issue in the history of Christianity and continues to influence contemporary practices. Delve deeper into the formation of the New Testament. It is crucial to understand how these traditions and narratives intertwine to create a new foundation for the Christian faith. The New Testament not only documents the life and teachings of Jesus, but also reflects the tensions and dialogues between Judaism and the burgeoning Christian movement, illustrating how the history of the evolution of monotheism unfolds into a new chapter and beliefs. As we advance in this discussion, it is essential to consider how religious syncretism has not only shaped the identity of Christianity, but has also influenced the beliefs and practices that are fundamental to this faith today. The impact of these cultural interactions is profound and often invisible, yet essential for understanding the diversity of contemporary Christianity. For instance, the core beliefs and rituals of redefines the relationship between humanity and the divine. The New Testament, is one of the most influential compilations in human history, not only for its religious content, but also for the way it has shaped Western culture, ethics, and spirituality. The writings it comprises were fundamental to the dissemination of the teachings of Jesus Christ and to the formation of Christianity as an organized religion. In this context, it is essential to practices. It becomes evident that they are much more than mere religious traditions. They are products of a long historical process of interaction, adaptation, and syncretism. The way Christian communities celebrate and experience their faith is a testament to the resilience and flexibility of Christianity throughout the centuries. As we explore Christian beliefs and practices, it will be interesting to observe how these syncretic influences understand how the New Testament came into being, what its influences were, and how it impacted the society of its time and subsequent generations. The formation of the New Testament occurred during a period of great cultural and religious ferment. After Jesus' death, his disciples and followers began to disperse, taking their beliefs and experiences to various regions, especially within the Roman Empire. The early Christian communities were manifest in different denominations and traditions around the world, further enriching our understanding of the evolution of this multifaceted faith. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like to help us create more content for you. Diverse, composed of both Jews and Gentiles, and faced the challenge of defining and conveying the Christian message in a world filled with distinct religious and philosophical traditions. Thus, the need to document the life and teachings of Jesus became pressing. The canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written in a context where oral tradition still prevailed. The accounts of the apostles, who were eyewitnesses to the events of Jesus' life and of other followers, formed the basis for these texts. Each gospel offers a unique perspective, reflecting the communities for which they were written and their respective theological concerns. For instance, the Gospel of Matthew emphasizes the continuity between Judaism and Christianity, presenting Jesus as the promised Messiah. In contrast, Mark, considered the oldest of the Gospels, provides a more straightforward narrative,